Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to MuleSoft training by Geeks. In this video, we'll see how to debug a Mule application. And we'll use the Hello World Mule application that we have built in the previous video to understand how we can debug Mule applications. And in case you haven't watched that video, watch that video first, build the Hello World Mule application, and then come back to this one. Okay, so let me go back to the Anypoint Studio. So this is a Mule application that we have built in the previous one, which is a pretty simple one. It just takes name as an input as a query parameter, and we are prefixing hello to that name, and we are sending that back as a response. So if I click on the just set payload, I'll just show you what exactly are we doing in this application. Let's go to the Mule properties. Yeah. So all we are doing is prefixing hello to the query parameter name that we are receiving and sending that back as a response. So in case something goes wrong in a Mule application, you have a debug mechanism available that you can use within the Anypoint Studio. So to show you how to use it, or before we start debugging the application, let's add in a logger component as well. Okay, let me add in a logger component after set payload. And let me add a breakpoints to this. So before you debug an application, you can set a breakpoint on the nodes where you want the Mule application to stop, so that you can view what was the payload or what are the other attributes at that point in time, or what values those attributes hold at that node. Okay, so we can add a breakpoint to these nodes. So for example, let's add a breakpoint. Do a right click, add a breakpoint. And on the logger also, you can add a breakpoint. And when you add a breakpoints to the nodes, if you debug the application, I'll show you how to do it in a while. If you debug the application will stop at these nodes and wait for you to review the values assigned to the Mule event. So it could be a payload, it could be any attributes that you might want to watch out for. Okay, so to save or to debug the application, you can do a right click, and you have an option to run the application in a normal manner. And this is what you normally do in 9 out of 10 cases. And only when you realize that something is not working as expected, and if you want to debug the application, that's when you use the debug option. So select debug application. And once you debug the application, the perspective of the application also changes, of the Anypoint Studio changes. So currently, if you see three options here, so these are called as perspectives, meaning the way Anypoint Studio displays the application to you. So we are currently in a designer perspective, and you get to design the flows and do all of this stuff. But when you're debugging it, whenever you try to debug an application, you get this option, you get this pop-up. What does it say? It says that the Mule debug perspective is designed to support Mule application debugging. So which means apart from the design, you've got one more perspective called debug perspective. So this is the debug perspective, and this will help you to look at the values and debug the Mule application. Okay, so and it also says what it does. It incorporates views for displaying the current Mule messages and for breakpoint management. So a message is not pretty clear here. So if you use what does it say? It is prompting us whether we would like to go back, whether we would like to go to debugging perspective, yes or no, or a debug perspective, yes or no. We are currently in the design perspective. Okay, so if you can click on remember my decision, so that we don't see this pop-up again. And whenever we debug an application, it will automatically launch the debug perspective. So you click on yes, and when you click on yes, you see the view or the perspective of the Anypoint Studio changes, and you see that the Mule debugger is appearing at the top here. And you see the application, and you could also see that the application is in deployed state. So this Mule application is listening on port 8081 on a path called /hello. Okay, and if we send in a request, this app will respond to it. And since we have set a breakpoint, it will not immediately send back a response. It will wait at these breakpoints, and it will wait for you to review the values assigned to the Mule payload. Okay, assigned to the Mule event. Let's go to a Postman and kick off a request for this API. And let's send in a request. We can say, yeah, we are trying to invoke the local host on 8081. We are invoking an endpoint called /hello. And let's pass in a name as geeks. We are passing in one query parameter called name, and we are passing the value as geeks. And this is how you pass value to the query parameters, in case you don't know. And you send in the request. And when you fire off the request, if the application has been running normal, you would have received response by now. But what do you see now? You see that it is still sending the response, a Postman. So if you go back to Anypoint Studio, you see that the application or request has been received. A request has been received, and you will also be able to see the payload that you have received. So you see a payload. Can click on the variables. Sorry, you don't have any variables. And if you look at the attributes, if you scroll down, if you click on query parameters, you see that there is one query parameter. Click on it and you get to see what is that value. So you've received this query parameter called name with a value as geeks into the application. That's fine. And if we click on next to progress further, click on next processor so that it will take you to the next event processor. Okay, so you could see that it has gone to the logger now. And by the time it reached the logger, what was the value set for the payload? Here we have prefixed hello to the name that we received, right? So if you look at the payload was initiated as hello geeks. Just to show you what is a payload that is going to get be sent back to the user or a calling client. And this way, you can add breakpoints and you can debug a Mule application so that you can view how the Mule event is getting transformed at each and every node in the Mule application. Okay, so this is the benefit of using a debugger in the Anypoint Studio. And if you click on it one more time, you will see that yes, the flow has completed. And if you go back to Postman, you should see your response there. Okay, you've got the response as hello geeks. Right? So if you don't pass in this name equal to geeks as a query parameter, let's send in one more request. Again, the story is same. Postman will keep waiting. You see a request received here, and if you go to attributes, expand it, you should not see any query parameters now. Yes, the query parameters is 0. Click on next. You see that we are in the logger now. And what was set as a payload? Hello user was set as a payload, because when we are setting payload here, we are prefixing hello to the name that you're passing, or if the name is null, we are using user as a default value. So that's why the payload was set as hello user. Okay, and if you click on it, if you click on the next processor one more time and go to Postman, you get back your response. So this way, so you might not appreciate the debugger in such a simple flow like this, but imagine a complex flow wherein you have a 10 or 15 processes, and imagine doing a complex batch processing example wherein the application is not working as expected. In such scenarios, the debugger will be your life savior. Okay, so this is how you can use a debugger which comes pre-built with the Anypoint Studio, and you've got n number of options available in there. Explore it further. And at the moment you debug an application, as you noticed, the perspective of the Anypoint Studio will change from Mule design to a Mule debug. And at any point in time, you can change the perspective back to design. Okay, there are two ways you can do it. You can stop the application first. Okay, you can terminate it, stop it. And if you want to go back to the designer perspective, you click on Mule design again. That will take you back into a different perspective. And if you want to go back into a debugger perspective, all you have to do is click on this, the first icon, and the Mule debugger perspective opens up. And similarly, you've got a third perspective, which will help you to design APIs. We'll not get into it, but you can probably use this if you want to design the APIs rather than the flows. Okay. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. In case you are interested in MuleSoft training offered by Geeks, call us on this number or send a WhatsApp message 73960335555, or you can send an email as well on info@geeks.com. Thank you.